Arachin Daf. Just like a person could say this object is hegdish, a person can use a different lashon, but meaning the same thing. He could say this object is cherem. There are two ways he could do it. He could say this object is cherem to the bedek habayis, to the Beis Hamikdash, or this object is cherem to the kohanim, and it goes to the kohanim. Our Gemara discusses what happens if a person doesn't specify if he meant to the kohanim or to the bedek habayis. This is machlokes. Rabbi Eli Stefansky says that if a person doesn't specify specifically that it should go anywhere, we say automatically it goes to the bedek habayis, because it says in the pasuk kodesh kadashim. Kodesh kadashim means to the Beis Hamikdash, not to the kohanim. Chachamim say no. When a person doesn't specify, he means it should go to the kohanim because it says in a different pasuk la kohen tia. So what do Chachamim do with Rabbi Eli Stefansky's pasuk kodesh kadashim? They say it's referring to a situation where a person has a designated animal as a karban, and a person wants to add to that the cherem. So what happens? There are two types of karbanas. There's a neder and a nedava. A neder means a person takes full responsibility. He's guaranteeing a animal, not a specific animal. So if this animal dies, he'll replace it with another animal, meaning that this animal has full value. So therefore, he must give full value cherem to the Beis Hamikdash. But if a person has a nedava and he says, I want to bring this specific animal to the Beis Hamikdash, and if this specific animal dies, he doesn't have to bring anything, then this animal has much less value. What is the value? We ask another person in the street, how much are you willing to pay to take this animal and bring to the Beis Hamikdash as oila? I'm giving you a really cheap oila. You don't have to bring one today, but when you want to bring one to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, very small value, whatever that value is, that's what he brings to the Beis Hamikdash. And what does Rabbi Eli Stefansky do with Chachamim's pasuk of la kohen tia in a case where a kohen received a field a cherem field, he got it. He took that field and turned it over and said, I want it to go to the Beis Hamikdash. Then they redeem it. Comes Yovel, it goes back. Says the kohen, I have right of first refusal, so to speak. Since it was mine, I worked it, I should come before all the other kohanim. It should come to me. Says the pasuk, no. You have to split it evenly between all the kohanim. Lahalacha, the Gemara says, Rav says that our Mishnah had it backwards. What Chacham say is really Rabbi Eli Stefansky. Rabbi Eli Stefansky says what Chacham say. In other words, lahalacha, Chacham paskin that if a person doesn't specify where the cherem should go, it goes to bedek habayis. That's Chacham shita, and Nula paskins that it goes to the kohanim, like Rabbi Eli Stefansky. And if a person says, I want to be magdish a bechar. Now, bechar is already kaddish. What does he do? Where's the extra kedusha? We say, if, for instance, there's a grandfather Yisrael who has a grandson of kohen, how much was he willing to pay that somebody should give a bechar that only goes to the kohen to his own grandson? That value he must give to the Beis Hamikdash. What happens in our days? There's no yovel, and somebody spits out, he says, I want to be machir my field. What do? In Eretz Yisrael, his words don't mean anything, because there's no cherem and there's no zman yovel. But in America and Chutz La'aretz, if somebody says that, it does grab, it does become cherem. And if somebody says on a movable object, on a metaltalin, this should be cherem, it's chal. So what do? We can't use it. If you use it, you're over amila. Says the Gemara, you take a coin, the smallest coin, you take a pruta, and you take the kedusha from the field, you put it into the pruta, you grind up the pruta, and you throw it into the water. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, you're not allowed to do that, because the field has a lot of value, and you're causing a loss to Hegdish. They could sell it off and make money. But if somebody went ahead and did it, it would be chal b'di'evet. The Gemara says a story there of Yehuda gave somebody advice and said, take 4 zuzim and take the kedusha of the field, put it into the 4 zuzim. The question is, 4 zuzim equals 768 prutas. Why couldn't he say, just do it on 1 pruta? The answer is, because if somebody tosses 1 pruta into the water, nobody would care. But when they see somebody tossing 768 prutas in the water, they say, what are you doing? It's a lot of money. And he'll explain, because I'm trying to take the kedusha from this field and I'm putting it into the coins. There are 5 halachas that only apply in the time of Yovel, when Yovel is noyeg. First one is Eved Ivri, the whole concept of Eved Ivri, the concept of Zdei Achuzah, as we had the whole sugya until now, and what we had today, Zdei Cherem. We have also Batei Arichayma. That's if a person sells a house in a walled city, he has a full year to take back the sale for the value for whatever he sold it for. After the year, he no longer has that ability. And finally, the 5th halacha is ger taishav. If a guy decides to be a ger, he only wants to keep, that he won't do avodah zarah and he won't eat nevelos, he's called a ger taishav. We are obligated to sustain him and give him a livelihood, and that's only in the time of Yovel. There seems to be a contradiction in the psukim when it comes to Bechar. On the one hand, it says Tagdishu. On the other hand, it says Lo Yagdishu. You should make the Bechar Kaddish. You should not make the Bechar Kaddish. There's 2 pshat in the Gemara. According to Rabbi Shmuel, Tagdishu means the Eloi Hegdish. Like explained before, you could add to a Bechar Kedusha, whatever type of Hana that is, that's what you're going to give to the Beis HaMikdash. And Lo Yagdishu means do not designate it for the Mizbeach. According to Chacham, Tagdishu is a new Chiddush that although a Bechar is born, the animal is born B'Kedusha as it comes out of its mother's womb, there's still a special mitzvah for the owner to specify and say, this animal is Kaddish. And Lo Yagdishu means that if a person takes a Bechar and tries to designate it as another type of carbon, he's over on a lav. And with that we finish Perek HaMagdish Sodeu, which discusses taking a field and making it Kaddish, being Magdish to the Bedek HaBayis. And now we're starting the Perek HaMoicher Sodeu. What if somebody tries to sell his field that is his De'achuzah that he got from his forefathers who inherited it when they came into Eretz Yisrael b'chalukas haaretz? The halacha is that the first 2 years after you sell your field, you're not allowed to redeem the field. We said the redemption is the value of the field. In other words, you take whatever you sold the field, it's sort of a gerain. You take the field, let's say you sold the field for $100 for 10 years, each year is $10. So if the other person used the field for 5 years, you give him $50 and you force him to sell it to you. But for the first 2 years, you're not allowed to redeem the field. Not only are you not allowed to redeem the field, you're not allowed to wave money in front of the buyer and say, look, I want to pay you money. And the seller also has the isser to sell it to you. If there was a drought or one of the years was a Shemitah year, those are not considered one of the 2 years that you're not allowed to sell it. You have to wait for another additional year, a year that you could physically plow the field because there's no Shemitah and there's no drought. What if the owner himself, on his own accord, decided not to plant on the field? He just plowed the field, but he didn't plant it, or he just didn't plant it. That's his fault, and that is counted as one of the 2 years. And the chiddush is that the original seller doesn't have to pay for the plowing. A person sells a field, and it has fruit on it, so the buyer, when he returns the field because the seller redeemed it, he doesn't have to pay for those fruit. Although it says in Torah Shnei Tfus that he only gets 2 crops, this 3rd crop he doesn't have to pay for. If a person bought a field right before Yovel and he ate the fruit for 1 year and then Yovel came, he gets an additional year after Yovel. You could sell a field, says the Gemara, immediately after Yovel because it says Achar Yovel, and way after Yovel because it says Lefi Ma'it Hashanim, Lefi Roiv Hashanim, or the opposite, Lefi Roiv Hashanim, or Lefi Ma'it Hashanim. We had a machlokes whether a person is allowed to be magdish a field on Yovel itself. Now we have the same exact machlokes with a small variation. If you're allowed to sell your field on Yovel itself, Shmuel says you cannot sell a field on Yovel itself because it got a chaymer. If I sold the field right before Yovel, Yovel comes and negates the sale. So certainly on Yovel itself, Yovel will negate the sale. Rav says I could sell the field, but only momentarily. The sale is good for 1 moment, enough that the seller grabs the money and keeps the money, but the field returns to the seller, the buyer loses everything. The Gemara had a shaila whether there's 2 halachas. If you sell a slave in Chutz La'aretz, the sale is no good. Is the halacha that the buyer loses his money? Or is the halacha that the buyer loses his money when a person sells his field on Yovel?